Iris, elegant, demure, complex, buttery, powdery, or flat, boring, dated. It is quite a thorny issue, the Iris perfumes. So let's dive in. We'll reason about why the Iris perfumes are the way they are, and hopefully you'll share your favorites or your failures when it comes to Iris-centric notes with me in the comments down below. All right, let's get started. I am gonna show you my personal exploration of Iris perfumes. I have quite a few bottles, but honest disclaimer first, Iris was always more of a theoretical interest of mine than practical notes that I would wear, especially if they're central to a perfume, which for better and for worse is not that common in perfumery. I found way more lilac perfumes that I found reliable and interesting Iris-centric perfumes. Partially, I think because Iris is getting kind of a bad rap in the modern olfaction arts and in the perfume community. It hasn't really found a really nice cultural translation to be relevant. And often when people smell something like a classic buttery / boiled carrots Iris perfume, they don't exactly get ecstatic about smelling like this in public. Nevertheless, it's not a coincidence, and here at least one reason why. Iris, the scent of Iris, and when you start studying and diving into the world of perfumery and sort of olfactory arts, you will notice that if you kind of try to trace the roots, what exactly is this Iris scent? It is not the scent of a flower, and it's almost a composite, kind of made out meta scent. If with leather scents, which we talked about previously, it's a purely cultural / kind of cultural technological construction. Leather doesn't have a smell, it's a skin of a dead animal. So what we think leather smells like, it's purely creation of people and the result of the technology / cultural movements in what was available and considered good smelling at the time that formed what we think leather smells like today. With Iris, it's somewhat in between. Definitely there are Iris flowers. However, the flowers themselves don't necessarily have any strong emitting scent. And when it comes to getting perfume ingredients from irises, flowers have nothing to do with it. What is being harvested is the roots of the flower. Not only that, it's specifically cured and chemically processed for 3 to 5 years and then transformed into something that looks like a butter. And that is what is used in perfumery. So it's the relationship of the word iris and us thinking about flowers has a very, very distant. It's that relationship is very distant with what we smell and what we believe iris accord is like. Not only that, the process that I described is so long, laborious, and expensive to grow so many irises, to harvest their roots, to cure them, and they're called rhizomes, to cure them for 3 to 5 years in order to even make an ingredient. And as a lot of you know, any natural ingredients, be it wine making, food making, or perfume making, they really fluctuate with the weather, with the climate changes, with the harvest, and all with the logistics and anything that's happening in the world. You can never rely, it's very hard to rely on even the same supplier year over year in order to get the same exact result when you get your ingredient. That makes iris is one of the most expensive. It's one of the most expensive raw materials in perfume making, period. At least it used to be. And that's why it made it to this royal aristocratic status. To afford a naturally made iris perfume was nearly the same as to have a collection of Cartier custom-made jewelry or Bulgari or other fine jewelry makers. It's not a coincidence that people say I smell money. When you smell an iris perfume, at least for the last couple of centuries, it meant, oh, you've got that kind of money to pay that much for a liquid that has this somewhat buttery, woody, sometimes somewhat powdery, depending how they combined it with other ingredients, smell. And only with the revolution in organic chemistry, when all kinds of synthetic extraction processes for the molecules that we know are really useful in perfumery, and creation of new molecules that created new scents that before that neither existed in nature or were not really available to preservation and extraction, because as some of you know, the natural ingredient extraction is very crude and it's very heavily processed. So in order to actually reproduce, let's say, a rose scent, there is so much needs to happen to get that the same feel that you get when you put your nose against the flower. If you're extracting rose oil, it smells not too far removed, but several definite steps removed from the flower itself. And that's pretty much with all perfume making in general. Raw ingredients almost never smell the same as the reference point that we're trying to recreate. And more often than not, in high concentrations, they stink and smell rather unpleasant. Similar with iris, it became available to the rest of us, to the pedestrians of this world, for those of us who don't own our own castles yet. What made possible to have a given iris perfume, and I'll show you a few that I have, is the synthetic molecules. Just to give you sort of an overview, the most common suspects are going to be ISO super, even though it by itself does not reproduce the iris butter scent, but it often kind of drives you in that direction, you know. Then irons and ionons. Ionons will be probably the cheapest together with ISO super, but ionons are the closest to the iris butter and the cheapest to produce. Therefore, most of perfumes you're going to be shopping for that have iris at its heart, kind of like that are designed around the iris accord, probably are based on ionons. I will start with Chanel. Not because I love it, but because I feel I'll be lynched if I don't mention a Chanel number 19. It's probably the most known iris-centric perfume that you can buy anywhere. All Chanel fragrances, with rare exceptions, are unisex, especially when it comes to Chanel 19. I know it's kind of marketed, it's in the aisles that are in the women's zone of any department store, but it's actually all of Iris perfumes. They are very confidently unisex. There's nothing fruity or sugary or like too girly about them ever. If anything, together with vetiver, these two notes really appeal to our more cerebral, more almost our philosophical nature, like the side of us that really hopes to one day get a chalet on top of a black mountain and just devote the rest of the years to writing your memoirs. That's the kind of appeal that Iris perfumes have across all marketing groups, let's say that. So Chanel number 19 is probably what you should go for if you have no reference point for what iris smells like. Somewhat herbaceous, somewhat dry. There's something between dry herbs and woody perfumes with a hint of sweetness, but it's very, very modest. It's a very reliable, good starting point for you to explore iris perfumes and at least make an intelligent decision if you want to go that route. That said, just me personally, I find most Chanel perfumes kind of unimaginative, to be honest. That's the smell of money, if you want to know what that smells like. Some of the Cartier hours, to me, are very confusing because some of them are for the lack of a better word, genius. Some of them are very similar to each other, and some of them fail to deliver any kind of uniqueness. If we're going for some architectural simplicity, fine, but that should not result in us seeing a faceless replica of something that's been done and overdone, that doesn't have any figure-outable concept. And I'm not sure that the promise in its current state goes anywhere. So, however, can be sampled in Cartier boutiques, so that's something you can just go and try. And as a reference point, this is a very reliable, dry, woody, somewhat with fresher green opening iris. I can't detect any smokiness or spiciness or leatheriness here. I really would love to see, if it's a monochord perfume, I would like to see more complexity and vivacity, because it's very quiet and it's kind of very flat. That's something that I would expect to see in the Zarka perfume line or the molecules. It's just doesn't have any development. It doesn't have complexity at the beginning, and it just quietly dies down. This is what I actually would call a fail, because it's just very monotone. Next one is a rare occurrence in any blogs. This brand is almost never mentioned these days. Different Company Bois Iris. I got a sample from a friend, and I keep kind of walking around. The Different Company was giving so much promise in the niche world, I would say in early 2000s, maybe like 2010s. And then somehow kind of deflated. I don't know, maybe they don't have enough money to do marketing, or they ran out of steam to sharpen their concepts. As far as I know, they still exist. They still produce new perfumes, but it's not something that you hear about a lot. However, they do have a lot of decent compositions. I was curious if Bois Iris could really bring peace to me, that I needed to have a favorite iris but couldn't find it. I thought, okay, let's make it musky, woody. Let's make it almost sparkly, patchouli, woody and iris. Maybe that will be kind of interesting and zesty enough. But to me, it smells very much like, again, molecular perfumery. When you have 1-2 ingredients, and it's charming like a body spray, but there's nothing to write home about. So Different Company Bois Iris is an option that you might find for very decent price if you really like an iris version that would be molecular woody with a little bit of tartness. I usually call it sourness. But for me, and also in my personal experience, the Different Company fragrances are not the longest lasting. Not that you know me, I don't care about beast mode, not my thing. But at least 15 minutes would be nice, you know? Next, actually, what I would call an unusually smoky iris, because I don't detect any burning sensation in this fragrance, but it gives me this kind of, there's something smoky about it. This is Dusita SplendIris. I did not expect that from Dusita. Given her overall friendly, almost vivacious personality as a brand owner and artistic director, given the best-selling hits from Dusita, I thought this would be like sweet, sunny, vivacious type of iris. It is actually probably the most serious and edgy and kind of standoffish of them all that I've tried. It has this almost hairspray kind of bittery sharpness to it that slowly, softly kind of melts into a powdery iris. It's not sweet whatsoever, but it's not sour, it's not too herbaceous. And thank God it doesn't smell like boiled carrots. This is probably like bulletproof iris that will never ever, I feel like, under any climate, weather, or the type of skin circumstances, will go into boiled carrots. That's one of the big problems, or I guess big facets of iris scents, that sometimes when they're done and wrapped with other ingredients in certain way, they smell like your kitchen would if you boiled, I don't know, 5 pounds of carrots in it. This somewhat sickly boiled vegetable sweet scent, not a good look in my view for a perfume. Here you guaranteed that SplendIris will never go that route, because it is almost frowning upon you. It's so serious. In a million years, I would not have expected that from Dusita. It is hard for me to wear, even though I can be pretty sharp and pretty direct, and yet it's not easy for me to wear. But I keep holding on to it because this is the most black smoking, like a black tie, like a very official, very tighten the lip type of iris that I've ever tried. And for that, it is special. And one of the most worn irises that are not gourmand for me ended up an iris that nobody ever discusses. It's one of those kind of Instagram niche / Sephora niche brands that come and go, and people just grab a bottle here and there, but they rarely ever manage to reach a cult status. This is Atelier Cologne. As far as I know, you can still find it in Sephora. Please let me know if I'm right. Atelier Cologne Iris Rebelle. I had a travel, and then I got myself another travel. Since I don't wear iris-centric perfumes as often, but every once in a while, I get into the mood. This one just does the trick. Is that special? No. It's the most typical woody molecular perfumery, kind of this, like, what IKEA is to furniture design, construction of an iris accord, but it does the job for me. It's pretty much like a much cheaper version of this, but it does the job for me. It's pretty much like a much cheaper version of this. Try Iris Rebelle by Atelier Cologne. Anywhere you can go, you'll have a very stable reference point. And now for the sinful iris. Iris kind of sort of made it to the mainstream perfume community through the gourmands. There were a few iris perfumes that made it to a cult status because they were hitting the sweet tooth of the perfume community just at the right time, yet they had enough of an iris cranked up that it made them iris-centric perfumes, but iris-centric gourmands nevertheless. We don't see that often in irises. Usually sweet irises of the past were just this lipstick smell. The one that I fell in love with, despite my snobbery, was Replica Exchange by Maison Margiela, Lipstick On. It was probably the number 2 best-selling perfume by Replica Exchange for a number of years after something Fireplace. That was definitely what brought these perfume line to everybody's attention, brought it forefront. But right next to it was Lipstick On. I'm still at loss why they discontinued it, because as I keep comparing things here and there, nothing quite beats it as an iris gourmand. It's strong enough and powdery as an iris. It has a little bit of this velvety, suede side to it. It has 0 boiled carrots, and it's unapologetically sweet. You just land in these gem with iris accord on top of it. It's beautiful, it's sinful, it's hard to find these days, except if you go to my olfaction library, maybe there's still a decant or 2 left there. And another version of it that I had to try because it's so rare to find iris in gourmands that is done well was a widely accessible flanker by Belle by Lancome, and it is Iris Absolu. It's my first Belle, because Belle has its own cult status. It's pretty much one of the best-selling liquid sugar perfumes, maybe behind Angel of Mugler. I am not a connoisseur of all of the Belle flankers. I know there are people who have every single one. I must say, though, this is very Belle to me. The iris plays a rather secondary role here. The DNA, Belle DNA, is way too distracting personally for me to really enjoy the iris accord. So no, it doesn't do the job. I was kind of hoping that maybe it could be a more affordable and widely available replacement for lipstick on. Nah. Nope. Not yet. We haven't gotten there yet. And this is where I am left at this moment. I have way more iris-centric perfumes that I actually need for personal wear. I haven't fallen in love with it yet, but what I discovered when I was testing and kind of studying Promise by Cartier, Gourmand, was that I adore Iris Accord as a room spray. As a linen spray, room spray, there are certain type of accords that just don't belong on me. It's how it feels. But they make everything better in the environment. I see how much I've used up. I got it was completely full. I've used up a lot of Promise as just spraying it in different rooms. And eventually I caught myself like, all right, you're using nearly $300 perfume as a room spray, honey. Like, champagne problems much? You know? I stopped myself, and now I'm thinking, well, I have to make a decision. Either I enjoy it as an environmental scent, or I just resell or swap the bottle, because this is kind of ridiculous. But that's the truth. I realize how passionately I love Iris Accord for the environment, for rooms, spaces, and I'm yet, with just a notable exceptions, I'm yet to find something, especially this one, lipstick on, I'm yet to find something that would really kind of edge its way in as my personal favorite. I'm curious if you, what were your path with Iris Accord has been? Where have you landed? Have you changed your opinion? Have you loved it from the beginning? Have you fallen in love with it or out of love with it through time? Please let me know if you have any favorites, because clearly I haven't named all of the perfumes that are centric to the Iris Accord that exist. There are way too many to name. So help each other out. Name a few that you think are just compliments to the chef, that are exceptionally well made and interesting. Let us know what you find interesting about them, and just share what is your relationship with this as a genre in perfumery. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really does make a difference, and I'll see you in the next one. See you in the comments.